Hey, everybody. Welcome to LinkedIn Live. My name is Neil McDonnell. We're going to get started here in a minute. I'm just going to set up my screen so I know what I'm looking at as I get started. I'm going to make sure that it's getting over to the LinkedIn Live. Yesterday, I started LinkedIn Live on, right on time, but I noticed it didn't go live on the screen on mobile. So I was trying to check that. As soon as I see that we're good to go, I'll get started here, and it looks like we're good to go. So again, my name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. It's an organization really designed to just help you make more money, especially for small businesses just getting started. I want to be able to provide you the how, not so much the what, right? The how. Everybody tells you the what that you need to do to be successful, but I want to give you tips in the GovCon Chamber constantly about how you can move forward. And so that's our mission. And our vision within the GovCon Chamber is to help small businesses make 50% of the federal small business eligible dollars. And what that means from my perspective is not changing laws or getting the agencies to do something different. It's to be able to teach all of you and you in particular on what the process is for success. When you know the process, I believe you can start moving forward, making more money in the federal space. And I know that there's not a conspiracy holding us small businesses down. So it's really up to us to take 50% of the dollars. One thing I wanted to do is go off on a quick tangent as I'm letting LinkedIn tell people that I'm live. But sometimes there's this confusion about how much money the government actually spends. People talk about trillions. And that's not totally reflective of the dollars that you have access to. And so, yes, the government has a multi-trillion dollar budget, but that doesn't mean anything for us businesses, small businesses that are selling to the federal government. We have a much smaller pool called the small business eligible dollars. And for rough numbers, that's basically about a half a billion. So half a trillion, $500 billion, a little bit more than that, but $500 billion are small business eligible dollars. So when you hear the government try to set aside 23%, they mean 23% of that 500 billion is their goal to set it aside. So it's important to see that. And the same thing could be said at a lower level. If DOD is spending $10 billion on cyber in 2022 in their budget, it doesn't mean you have access to $10 billion because part of that money is being spent on things that small businesses just don't have access to, or cyber that's not related to your skill set. So when you think about money, just keep that in mind. That was a little side tip as we get started. Today's topic is going to continue a 5-day pattern I want to do this week, talking about capture. And today I want to talk about, putting together the right team. So we'll get to that in a second. As you're joining, whether you're going live, watching it in a replay on YouTube, LinkedIn, or listening to it on a podcast, put a comment in. Let me know who you are, especially your company name and your core competency. And when I say core competency, what's the one thing that you're best at? If you want me to remember, tell me yours. And I'll try to remember that. The last thing I want to say is you can see a link right by my name, I think, www.govconchamber.com. Go in there if you haven't, and that's where we keep some really useful ebooks, directories that are free for you to have access to. That'll save you hundreds of hours of your own research because we've taken the time to put it all together. Go download it and save yourself some of the research time and start making more calls. Okay, so today's topic, again, in the federal capture arena, I want to talk about forming winning teams. There's a lot that can go into it, but I'm going to centralize this around using a teaming worksheet. And so I'll talk about that throughout this live event, right? And you know that this fits into your world. If you sometimes struggle to find the right teammates, or you've got a team put together, but sometimes you feel like you end up with less than ideal teammates, it doesn't mean they're bad, but maybe they're not a good fit for the opportunity that you guys have teamed up on. And so if you're feeling that, my the top reason that I see that happens, it's happened with me, and the top reason I'd submit it might be happening with you, is that you're not clearly defining what you need in a teammate, what you're looking for. Often we go off and just pick teammates based on the people we like and the companies we like instead of really to a criteria. Today, I want to talk to you about that criteria. A major impact, if you will, from not having that right team is you're not going to win, right? So the whole purpose of submitting a proposal, going through capture, submitting a proposal and waiting for award is you want that contract to be awarded to you. And when you pick the right team, you will find that you're going to win more. And you hear me say government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. Well, today's process that I want to talk about is finding that teammate. What can you do to improve the likelihood that you're getting the right teammates on your team? So I'm just looking in, I see some comments. I'm just making sure that the sound and audio are good, and I think they are. So let me move into the body of what my tip is for today. I use something called a teaming worksheet. And the first thing that I do before I fill out a teaming worksheet is I do a gap analysis. Yesterday, I did a video on how to look at an opportunity using a gap analysis to decide which task areas in an opportunity or requirement that you're strong on and which ones you're not strong on, right? And the idea of strong to me is if you're rating it 1 through 5 and 1 is weak and 5 is very strong, that you want to look at 4 and 5, and that's what you're strong at. And everything else, you basically want to find a teammate for. And by the way, this is my opinion on the best way to go at this. People might have varying topics of discussion around that. But what I want you to do is to focus on your core competencies. So if you're rating it 4 and 5, that's a strength. You know that that's also your core competency. So it aligns there. And just as a recap to the gap analysis and what's in it, I take a PWS, performance work statement, and I grab the tasks out of the scope area and I put them into a spreadsheet requirement gap analysis template that I have. And in there, you can put in the task areas. If there's subtasks, you can put those in as well. And the next column is rating. Here, you will rate every task area 1 through 5. An example is, let's say SharePoint is my example, and there's 3 task areas just for today's example. There's SharePoint governance, there's SharePoint infrastructure, which is, let's say, the hardware, and there's SharePoint software development or application development. I might look in and go, hey, governance and the network or infrastructure stuff, we're strong, but we really don't have software development experience. And so I'm rating that at a 3 or a 2. The third column that I would put in there is past performance. That's telling me how strong I am on it. Well, one of the things I see right away is that from a requirement standpoint, I know I need to go seek a teammate who's got SharePoint software development experience. That will make my team so much stronger. And that's only one reason to find a team, right? But in this case, we're talking about the requirements. How do you find teammates to shore up your requirements? So before I fill out a teaming worksheet, I fill out the gap analysis and I bring over the requirement, in particular, weak areas that I want to shore up with the teammate. So a second thing that I do, and I didn't give this out, actually, I don't think I gave the gap analysis out either, but because they're part of other courses I do. But an acquisition requirements gap analysis is something very similar to the scope. Here, you're looking at what does the government want from a vendor as it relates to the acquisition, anything not related to the work. So an example could be socioeconomic status. They might want a SDVO. It's like, okay, we are that or we are not that. And filling out a gap analysis around that will allow you now to understand the technical requirements and the what I call the acquisition requirements in there, the everything other than scope requirements. By understanding that, you now know where you're strong at. It will help you decide where you need to shore up a team. And so I'm going to expand into each one of those topics going forward here. So let's talk about the teaming worksheet. It's a template that I use, and it's got the basic information at the top related to the opportunity. And the reason I use this, by the way, is not only to talk to myself, but to talk to others on my team. So let's say within your company, you fill it out as a capture lead, but you've got several people who are participating in bid, no bid, or several people who might be able to help with teaming ideas. When you have this written down, you can have conversations internally about what you're thinking you need for a team. So having a template that you fill out the same way every time gets everybody on your team thinking the same way you are about an opportunity and what you need to shore up a team. So when I come down, the first question I ask myself is, looking at the requirement gap analysis in particular, and then the acquisition gap analysis, are we going to prime or are we going to sub? It's a very fundamental question, but sometimes people let it linger. It's not that hard of a question from my mind. If you can say that 60% of the tasks or more are in your space and any of the required acquisition requirements that you can solve, then you can prime. right? So if somewhere in there it says you must be on a contract vehicle, you're not, well, now you can't prime anymore. So it's a very easy decision to decide whether you're subbing or priming. What happens is, what prevents people, I think, sometimes making this decision, and you might relate to this a little bit, is that when you're in between the priming and subbing decision, you begin to start saying things like, well, I think we could do this. We've got some area experience over here. Yesterday, I wrote down, after I had done the live event talking about the gap analysis, that if you have to rationalize something, then it should be a deal breaker. So in this case, if you have to rationalize why you would prime, you should sub. And I know people might have other thoughts on it, but I'm just saying, don't waste your time. There's enough opportunities out there that you will find. You're like, oh, we are definitely priming this one. No one's going to do it better than us. Those are the opportunities you want to prime, are the ones that no one's going to do it better than us. The ones you sub are these task areas. No one's going to do them better than us, but we're going to be on somebody else's team. So that's the first thing you want to do, is decide priming or subbing on there. By the way, if you see me looking down, I'm looking at my iPhone for the clock to make sure I'm keeping track on the time. And if I'm looking here, I'm looking at chatting to try to see if I see questions. Okay, the second thing I do when I go through, going back to acquisition, is I look at the socioeconomic status. If I'm a small business, what I want to be looking at is, obviously, if I'm looking for a prime because of a socioeconomic status, I want to write down, what am I looking for? Am I looking for a woman-owned small business? Am I looking for a hubs-owned business, et cetera? And so when you need a prime, sometimes you need a prime because it's set aside to a woman-owned business and that's not your business. So I write that down. I've got that noted. As I go look for partners, I will make sure I'm only looking at women-owned small businesses. It could be something similar with larges. If you're trying to find small businesses to shore up your small business plan, you could do that same thing. We're looking for SDVO and a woman-owned small business. You might get two, or you just find one company that has them both. The next thing on this list, or the template that I use, is related to the contract vehicle. So the government's going to buy this one way or another. They're going to use GSA, or they're going to just do a direct contract, a standalone contract, or they might say, hey, it's going to be on Oasis, it's going to be on Alliant or Stars 3. Whatever it is, if you don't have that contract, then you're looking for somebody with that contract. When you're filling that out and you look for somebody with a contract that you don't have, it's already told you you're not going to prime, you're only subbing. But now you're looking for a woman-owned business that has Alliant, as an example, right? I don't know if those even fit together, but that's the point, right? Here's a socioeconomic, here's my, here's a contract vehicle I need them to have. And what that's telling you is, it's helping you do, is to not waste your time with businesses that are not on Alliant or not woman-owned small business. And so you're reducing the amount of wasted energy on companies that'll not be able to serve your need. And that happens typically when we only focus on the requirements looking for teaming partners and not dig deep into the acquisition of what we need from a teaming partner. Okay, so the next thing is, I already talked about the task area, but you want to put that down. What I put on my teaming worksheet is not the things I can do well. What I put are the task areas I cannot address. And when I'm reaching out to a teaming partner, I'll send them the PWS. If they don't, I'll say, hey, task 4, we don't do that. 4, 7, and 9, we don't do that. In the SharePoint example I did, here I would write down SharePoint software development. We don't do that. And so as I start looking for somebody, it helps me drive right to the questions. I don't need to talk to you about the opportunity. What I need to talk about is, are you a company that has strong performance and skills in SharePoint software development? If you do, then I can talk to you about the opportunity. But otherwise, it's a waste if you do the reverse. Okay, so I talked about requirements on a task area, but there's also skill sets. So task area is about what the company's core competency is, what your past performance is, that kind of stuff. Do we have experience? But then there's skill sets and staff certification. You must have a program management professional, somebody certified by PMI, or Microsoft or Oracle certification, or have a certain welding certification. The lead manager or whatever must have this skill set. If it says it in there, and often you'll find requirements that have that, you want to capture that right away. So when you're talking to teammates, you don't wait to way in the capture process and you've got your team kind of in there to go, oh, by the way, we need people who are PMPs. Well, I needed to know that early on, because maybe that certification takes 6 years to get, and we only want to team up with firms who already have it. not firms that do some other stuff, but they miss the requirement. And so by writing it down, when I'm talking with teammates, when I'm researching for teammates, I'm able to make sure I've got those criteria right in front of me. The next one, and I alluded to this already, is past performance. And so when I look at task areas and say, can I do it 1 through 5? That's just, do we have the core competency, but it's not specifically talking to the past performance. And so I want to match up, do we have past performance within a task area? If we don't, I need to find a teaming partner who has past performance. And so when I look out and when I'm writing in the teaming worksheet, what I'm looking for from teaming partners for past performance so that I can ask them, do you have this? I look for task areas. Do you have past performance, not skills, but past performance doing SharePoint software development? They can sit there and say, oh yeah, we're doing that for the Army. We've got this task order. We can use that as past performance. Perfect. We got that covered down. Do you have past performance in this agency? So if I'm going after an Air Force opportunity, maybe I don't have the Air Force opportunities, but I'm really strong in the skills. Well, we need to make sure that somebody is bringing at least one strong qualification in the Air Force, preferably down at the command we're going to be selling to be able to say we have customer intimacy or understanding down there, in addition to all this skill set around the task areas that you have. So past performance for tasks, past performance for customer or agency experience. And then the third one is past performance related to size. So maybe the contract's $100,000. Most of us can throw a past performance in that'll meet it. But what if the contract is for 25 million or 100 million, right? I often deal with contracts that are 50 million plus, right? Easily into the 100 millions. Well, what the government is looking for is a prime contractor and or teams that have experience managing a $100 million contract. And so if that's the case, you want to put that down on your teaming worksheet. And by the way, when I say 100 million, the past performance really can be 10 or $20 million a year type experience. They want to know that you can handle the workload. And this goes into, it's a separate topic for me to talk about, but it goes into risk management on their part. They want to know that you have the ability to manage a project. One thing that's a one-off related to teams is often the government will want to know that you have experience working together as a team. So do you have past performance together? That's another thing to look for. To me, that's less of a criteria for looking for a teammate. That's more of a bonus, right? So I don't put it in the teaming worksheet that's there. So I did past performance. I talked about this a minute ago about, I said acquisition requirements, but you can think about organizational certifications. Maybe the government's looking for you to have an ISO certification, or maybe they're looking for you to have a CMMI certification, whatever the industry related certifications are to your organization. So it's not PMP on an individual. It's, hey, this organization follows mature processes, et cetera. Some of those organizational certifications might be around your auditing, right? So if you're in the DoD side, there's specific auditing requirements that you might get tied to. You want to look through and find those as fast as possible from a teaming perspective. So as you're reaching out to teammates, you can find people who've got that good spot. And that doesn't matter whether it's sub or prime. It's actually more important if you're looking for a prime, that you're communicating to the prime that this opportunity requires a higher, let's say it's a facility clearance, right? Top level, top secret facility clearance. You might find a great prime, but if they don't have the top secret facility clearance, then they'll never be able to go after the opportunity. And so you want to be able to find that out and communicate it to your teammate. The last couple are geographic. So when you look for teaming partners, maybe you're looking for somebody with geographic experience. Joint Base San Antonio down in Texas is an example. I've got a customer that's reaching out to San Antonio. They want to go after a big contract that's being run out of San Antonio, and but they're not in San Antonio. Well, having a teammate who not only has experience, but experience with that particular base and has an office down there could add value to the teaming partners. And so if that's important to you, you write it down on the teaming worksheet. And the last one is how many teammates do you want? So when you look to building out your team, sometimes you just want to shore up the missing requirements and that's it. Other times you might say, hey, I want to put on more companies in here so we can really bring in a level of expertise. And so understanding how many teammates you want to bring in is an important thing to know, because when you start doing your research for teaming and you're using your teaming worksheet and maybe people inside your company are helping you, you can look down and go, oh, we're looking for 3, and then you measure it up against the criteria that's there. So Let me know if you have any questions about what I'm saying. I know it's a fire hose worth of information, but you can, you can hit replay and watch this again. And you can also ask me for the teaming worksheet, right? If you want that, put a note into the comments. Hey, Neil, please send me the teaming worksheet template, and I'll send that to you. When you think about teaming, one thing I want you to remember is that you're trying to find and build teams based on facts, not friends. What I mean by this is that we all know many, many companies. I know Joe over there, and they got a great company. And when I'm just building a team based on friendship, I go, oh, Joe, you guys do software development? Yeah, we do. Okay, let's create a team. And boom, you're out to the races. But that's not good enough. You need to have criteria that both Joe and you are looking at the criteria and go, does it make sense for you to be joining our team? We want to team up at different points, but maybe this opportunity is not the right one. Well, when you have a teaming worksheet that you're talking with Joe about an opportunity, you're able to really evaluate the fit based on facts, the facts that you have laid out. And so that's something to keep in mind. The other advantage of having a teaming worksheet is when I have that thing completed, I can walk around and talk to anybody about an opportunity and what's missing, right? It's not in some PowerPoint area where we're doing it. It's a teaming worksheet. This is what I need for teaming. And so I can talk to people inside the company. Hey, before I go out and do any research, anybody pop to your mind that looks like they meet this requirement, this thing? Oh yeah, not Joe, but Jane. Jane's company is a woman-owned small business, plus it's this and that. I think they'd be a good fit. You should go, talk with her, and we've had a good relationship. Perfect. And then I can go out into the broader, internet and try to find people somewhere else. Using that worksheet, I'm able to communicate easily to them the opportunity and what I'm looking for in 5 minutes or less. And they can look at that and say, yep, it looks like us. Let's keep talking. Or, nah, that's really not us. I appreciate you thinking of us, but that's not us. Okay, perfect. Let me just let you go and we'll come back. Calls don't have to take forever to get to that point. So I talk about success in government contracting is heavily dependent on relationships. Relationships feed into everything I talk about. Every process that I describe for you, there's some relationship that is helping make that happen for you. And one of the things that you can do to strengthen relationships is something like this, where you have a teaming worksheet. Because you give that teaming worksheet to possible folks, you're bringing on the right teams, people will really appreciate your discipline and your knowledge about an opportunity. And when you're able to help them win, well, that strengthens relationships. Remembering the names of their kids doesn't so much strengthen the normal business relationship, but focusing on helping your teaming partners win and get into the right opportunities, that strengthens relationships. So that's a good thing. Yep, Amit, I'll send it to you. Okay, so I'm wrapping up here on the topic of the day on teaming worksheet. Let me know in here if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'm going to pop on down. We'll keep moving. One thing I was going to ask you is just give it a thumbs up if you found value in today's topic. If you'd like, again, a copy of the template, just go ahead and ask me in the comments. And again, feel free to ask me once you're watching the replay on LinkedIn, YouTube, or somewhere else. Tomorrow's lesson is going to continue with teaming. The next 3 days are going to go into depth of how I recommend you begin to, not teaming, but capture, how I recommend you gather information that is hugely valuable to you, shaping opportunities, shaping the discussion, and shaping your proposal so that it's a winning proposal. I describe a winning proposal as one that you could submit and the government would want to award. Whether they award is a different question, right? But they look at it and they go, this is a winner. Let's put it in the winner's pile. What you don't want to be is, and this is not the winner's pile. And so the next 3 days are diving into 3 particular topics that I like. And tomorrow's is on understanding the background of an opportunity. So come back for that. A reminder that on April 5th, we're doing a webinar. And this one is finding and building relationships that lead to federal revenue. So I just talked about relationships. Come into that webinar with me. In there, I'm going to lay out really actionable stuff you could do right after the webinar to increase the relationships, strengthen the relationships you have, and find new ones. So come in for that. And then the last thing I just mentioned to you is that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. And things like this teaming worksheet are part of the process. Hope you have a great day. See you tomorrow.